Hello, everyone. Nice to see still so many people here for this session of us basically talking about our aspects from the CRA. And you've been seeing quite many presentations already on the CRA. It has been mentioned in the keynotes. We had 2 dedicated slots in the keynotes as well on that, covering like moving from cybersecurity to cyber resilience. We had Rode and Schwarz bringing in their aspects. So you might be wondering, who are these 2 dudes and what can they bring in to the overall story? So maybe Petri, you can start introducing yourself.
So hello everyone, my name is Petri Monin. I'm working as a product director at Qt Company, and I've had the privilege for the past year and so to be the heading of the CRA program that we have run internally at Qt. So kind of I've been watching this regulation and the things moving on, and now of course joining the session with MAURICE.
Yeah, thank you. MAURICE KALINOWSKI. I'm here today a bit with a dual hat, so to say. Number one is I'm also part of the product management organization, responsible for the Qt framework, but also I'm still an active maintainer for a Qt MQT module, meaning I also like wearing 2 hats right now when it comes to product management as well as from the R&D side. So yeah, as mentioned today, we want to talk a bit about how we have been approaching the CRA, what obstacles we had in between, what we needed to figure out, and then basically building up our journey towards that. But maybe let's start a bit with setting the stage, because we've been talking a lot about CRA so far, and previously talking about cybersecurity and resilience in a broader spectrum. But Petri, how does the CRA actually fit into the overall spectrum coming from the European Union?
Good question. And yeah, you've heard about in the earlier keynotes about the regulatory tsunami or avalanche or what have you there. So maybe this kind of puts it in a bit of a context. So this is a slide from ENISA. Hans de Vries, who is the Chief Security Officer and the Operation Officer at ENISA, was presenting this in one of the security conferences last year. I think it pretty much covers the different kind of layers of the cybersecurity and digital policy landscape that EU is planning to hit the market. Some of those are already in force, some of them are planned, some of them are kind of an implementation phase or an agreed phase. So in the lower left corner, you can see the different regulation that is going to hit the companies without any specific cybersecurity notion. In the middle layer, there is an industry-specific cybersecurity elements, and then the outer rim, you can see the ones which are cybersecurity focused. Inside of that one, you see the NIS2s, CRAs, and these kind of ADORAs, which have been mentioned here already in the presenters. The point here is that this is actually a pretty big maze or tsunami, if you will, of regulation, where you need to understand where your company would be in. On top of that, you need to be aware of the other executive orders across the pond. You've seen a few of them emerging here and there and every day. So this is one thing to observe here. But the bottom line is out of this that you would have to assess that which out of these will be impactful to your company and your products, and how we will be starting to tackle that. And this is basically what we started our journey a year back. We started to kind of navigate through the maze and try to understand the plot. So MAURICE, how did this start for the framework as you kind of running that product?
Yeah, so yeah, like Petri said, we started getting approached like, what's Qt take on the CRA? And well, when you start looking into the whole legislative situation, what's coming in there, what kind of questions? You start reading the law, you go through all the requirements, and to be honest, it's very overwhelming from the beginning. You're going to ask yourself so many questions, and especially when you're then talking to partners and customers and users and you try to align, how does it all work and come together at some point in time? And how do you really assess what you need to do? Coming from a law, which then basically goes to certain stages until you are into the certification period. And there's very challenging questions we sometimes get asked, and the most challenging one is actually a very easy one, is, where are you? Is Qt certified? Is it ready? And then it's like, can we please have a bit of a longer discussion, getting into the context, what is it actually you need in that respect? Yep. So again, like coming from both perspectives, from a product side, you're looking into, okay, these are the requirements, this is what we need to put into the roadmap so we are ready. But there's actually quite many things in the CRA also which cover things like ways of working. When it comes to your software development lifecycle, how do you manage that? Do you need a certified approach in that respect as well? So from an R&D perspective, that can be also like quite cumbersome to go through. how do I need to change my ways in development to actually be CRA compliant, and what's the impact there?
Yeah, and
So
that self-reflection, I think we didn't only rely on our own kind of estimate that where are we, because you become a little bit blind to your own kind of a situation. We did use an external help also to give us the more objectivity into this.
Right. And I mean, that's super important, or certainly it has been very important for us. Like you said, there's blind spots you have, but also sometimes you're over-assessing yourself in regarding where you stand. It's a typical situation like, do you take care of this and that? And like, yeah, it's fine. But no, actually you might not be. So having an external entity going through all the processes you have, is your documentation in place? That is, for instance, something to recognize. For many of the steps and the requirements, we actually have the right process, but it's not correctly documented. So going through these steps with an external entity really has helped us in that respect. And that then also leads to the whole situation of understanding who are the stakeholders you should be inviting in such a self-evaluation where you are on the CRA.
Correct, and kind of understanding this sort of a stakeholder mapping, Roland Schwartz was mentioning this previously. Once we kind of in the product management kind of got this task of evaluating the CRA readiness and what is out there, what's the gaps and etc. Surely this was initially asked to kind of set up the program, and this program had, in our case, there was 5 to 6 different streams of different stakeholders, because we recognized that this is not going to be a product management alone show. We got to get a little bit more help. So once we first consulted our legal department of understanding the regulation, the language itself, how to interpret that, etc. That sort of led us then to understand that there needs to be a very tight connection back to the R&D, because a lot of those provisions in the law are actually touching the areas where the R&D processes and methods and activities need to be changed and addressed. The R&D was not the whole answer, because there's also the IT and the security aspect around the kind of authentications, the kind of other, let's say, more normal IT security or this kind of a level stuff. And then, of course, when we move on the legislation, we understand also that the support area need to be kind of leveled up, because we've accustomed to certain level of support, but the CRI is requiring a different kind of a discipline around the vulnerability reporting, etc.
Yeah. What I really like about this approach, having this cross-organizational, is the situation that you start having like pair programming or like review process in that respect. 4 eyes principle, you could say as well. Again, in an R&D or inside PM, you might recognize the situation to be rather different compared to another entity or other organization in your company. But also it helps in finding weak spots or blind spots as well. I just remember one discussion we had quite a lot about what does actually actively exploited mean in the CRA context for Qt. Because Qt is such a horizontal product, are you using all modules of Qt? If there is in some leaf module something, we might be recognized, either identify ourselves or get informed that there might be a potential exploit, but is it actively exploited? That is really discussion based on your products, based on how you use Qt, etc. And that is, for instance, a discussion we just figured out when we were discussing that with the legal side of things.
Yeah, correct. And of course, this was a kind of our internal kind of effort and what we were assessing here. We need to also recognize that there's the external alignment that we're going to have. Of course, with our customers, when we start to talk about these things, we need to talk with the partners, software and hardware level. There's external, authorities and this kind of a processes that we need to tap into and work in tandem with them to understanding how the CRA impacts us. And then the other ecosystems, what we are out there, and of course in the ecosystems, there's large communities that we cannot go bypassing. So after all this assessment and kind of a mapping the turf, I mean, what would be the kind of highlights to mention on the kind of next steps?
Yeah, so basically we try to put it into, let's say, buckets of the things we need to challenge. And generally, let's state it's 2 categories, easy to act upon and the hard part. And don't get me wrong, you might see things now coming up in the easy to act upon, but it's just easy because the law is pretty clear. So you know what to do, and that might still be lots of effort from your end. The hard part is these aspects where either the law is not 100% clear yet, there's still lots and lots of discussions going on in the authorities.
All right.
or where we're still also like in the phase of assessing to which extent we need to do further additions, changes to our models, etc., etc. So maybe let's start with one of the items in the harder side, the secure software development life cycle. So Petri, maybe you can.
Yeah,
give some
so
insight.
this is definitely area which we recognize being on more of the hardest side. Not necessarily because there would not be models how to do the secure by design type of approaches, etc. But we just have to actually take a better control about our code, our processes, our tools type of understand. And it may change also some of our approaches what we have had in the previous in the R&D. So this is kind of a more of the people process change, which is not that easy to do in a flip of the switch. But this is definitely something that we run into there.
Yeah. And now we're coming to the perfect example of lots and lots of work, but an SBOM, so the software bill of material, is clearly defined. It's clearly defined what it entails, what needs to be in there. You just need to do the effort actually of creating that. And it's a significant effort to do, especially on the Qt side. If you want to have a look later at our booth, you might see that there's quite some dependencies also in Qt. So Qt uses our libraries as well. And the SBOM describes basically what's your overall delivery chain of modules. So if you are creating a product, you probably have one Qt as one of the aspects in there, which then has other libraries, etc. And the SBOM helps to define or identify which are these assets, also with which version are you using, and then later on when it comes to vulnerability management, that you identify, okay, we're using this and that version of this component. Are we potentially affected? Is there something going on? So one of the items we've been starting working on is first of all, well, identifying these parts with Qt attributions. That's a JSON file you will find in every module, which now generates the SBOM once you, not only from the source side of things, but actually make it fit to your build. So we do have, you could say, binary verification. If you exclude some features in Qt, for instance, from a specific module, the SBOM will be generated based on your build. That's latest additions we've now been adding into 6.8.
All right, then moving on to a little bit of the harder parts again. So what we are recognizing that the EU CRA is essentially they are looking this from the perspective of improving the cybersecurity risk management. So we at Qt have, of course, the risk management processes around the company level, kind of, or a business unit level, etc. Now we're talking about expanding this security risk management kind of a area down to the product level and even to the code level, kind of flagging the riskier areas in our product. And this is definitely something that is going to be a bit more of a risk management improvement or uplift in our side as we kind of originally reckoned.
Source code integrity. That can cover many aspects. What we are referring to here is who is contributing to the source code. Do you know who are the entities working on that? How do you verify that you're actually building from very specific sources, which you can then basically match when it comes to any kinds of verification, or we've been talking external audits, etc. Do you know the components? Do you know how you basically build your stack? On the embedded side, there's things like Yocto, which help a lot. But also there needs to be some additional effort being done from the Qt side as well.
All right. And then some of the kind of areas that we're kind of looking to improve is our preparedness for the security audits. So we're constantly getting the security assessment requests from our customers, etc. Of course, the CRA is going to put this into a different level. We need to be preparing ourselves to kind of handle either the customer or then the authorities level of a kind of audit request in all organization areas. So we, in this respect, as Maurice mentioned, we should be having not only the right activities, processes, and controls in place, but really having the evidence at every day of the year available for these such audits coming up. So this is going to be a bit more of a harder push for our parts to cover.
Yeah. Documentation. The CRA is basically having many parts on, like I mentioned also before. You need to document your processes, you need to document how certain things are managed within the life cycle. We've just been putting lots and lots of updates actually. We've now also have a new CRA-related web page when you go to Qt.io. But also when it comes to the developer documentation, adding in, again, what are your dependencies, how do you manage security incidents. That needs to be documented as well, coming in, for instance, as an aspect from the risk management side. If you figure out there might be something wrong, how do I report that to a vendor, etc. Publishing these kind of documentations, how do we get that into an iterative cycle that we can like progressively and iteratively basically update the content in that respect.
And then the last thing in this list is basically this longer term support. I mean, you basically heard that we've done last fall with the 6.8, the LTS extension to 5 years. That's good enough for the CRA kind of a purposes. So we've sort of meeting the criteria on that regulatory perspective, but of course we have a number of customers who are requiring longer than that support periods, and for that reason we've now introduced a couple of additional services, the extended security maintenance, extended support, this kind of elements, which will be then geared towards of our customers requiring longer term of support. Plus 10 years and so, it will probably need a little bit more tricks and treats because 10 years in technology, as you know, may require more than just the bug fixing and stuff. They might have to have a old hardware and stuff also available for reproducing the bugs and errors. So in that sense, this is kind of a stuff that we need to prep for and the longer term kind of a support demands.
Yep.
But hey, all this is kind of good for essential requirements, and how does Qt company meet these? Maurice, what do you say? How does this relate then to our open source Qt side of the equation?
So for those of you who have been aware when the whole CRA has been composed, there has been quite some discussions around how open source actually fits in there. From the very initial setup, so to say, when the European Union wanted to set it up, it basically had like almost killed all open source development because it was just not possible to adhere to the regulations. And that is, for instance, one part where the whole idea of an OSS Steward has been introduced, that has been discussed where people from the EU came to FOSDEM, aligning how does that all fit together. And from our perspective, we really embrace this situation. We are really excited that there is this open source steward person or role basically defined. And from our perspective, in that respect, it kind of harmonizes of what we've been doing. We do have security processes already since 15, 20 years, we're turning 30 years now. So we have quite a lot of experience in that field. But also that's coming from both from the open source as well as from the commercial side of things. So it really helps in that respect that we are having one process which is covering both of these kind of aspects. Then the next question is, what kind of tools, processes, etc. you want to have, and we can and want to provide also for the open source communities, because they are contributing to Qt, and Qt is a large product used, as you have been seeing in the keynotes today, on medical devices, etc., or from all kinds of industries, where you have very strict regulatory environments. So having having harmonized development environments, etc., providing tools how you can best develop secure software with Qt is something that we are taking seriously as the Qt company. And that one also leads to another third part is how do we handle contributions? You might all be aware of, I think it's now 1.5 years ago, around Christmas time, when there has been social hacking, for instance, as one of the aspects. How do you protect from that? That is things we still need to learn in that respect. I was referring to identifying who are the contributors to your project, which is pretty complicated in open source, because, well, you want to be open, you want to be inviting, but at the same time, you want to make sure that actually you know who's contributing, that there is no non-ethical actions going on, etc., etc. So that is, for instance, a part where we still need to look how to move from that end. So I think now the question is, how does it all fit together, especially when it comes to aligning from the CRA perspective, because we have everything in place, right?
Yeah, we have all the time in the world, you wish. Well, we look at the CRA from the timeline perspective, that what does this represent to the Qt company? We know from the previous presentation that last 10th of December last year, the EU Parliament was kind of a rubber stamping the CRA bill, which meant that the clock started to ticking for the 3-year transition time. The next kind of a time point is in the September 26, when we do kind of a vulnerability reporting requirements will apply, and then in the end of 27, things are going to be going full force, and the companies need to kind of comply with this. When we look at this with the Qt releases perspective, we launched the 6.8 LTS. Now currently we are looking that in roughly June 26 we would be targeting to have our products CRA compliant. So it would meaning that we will be self-declaring the framework to be compliant. And most likely we're looking the 6.12 as the LTS version there to be the target release where this would be delivered. The 6.8 will remain as a kind of what we would maybe consider as a CRA ready or prepared version still there. But if we look at this in the current point of time, but we're now in 25 May, and we look at the kind of a time frame of us hitting the June 26 for our customers then to be ready by 27. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of time here.
I think that's actually a very crucial aspect when it comes to that. Why do we have two different graphs here? Maybe a bit explaining on that a bit more. We could easily say 11th of September, we need to have CRA compliance.
Yep.
But the problem is, well, you still need some time to take a CRA compliant version of Qt, put it into your product, verify it works, and takes care of your CRA-related requirements then as well. So that means that from our perspective, we need to be ahead of time. And the question for us has always been, how much ahead of time, well, can we be? Because we cannot state we're like 100% there yet. Just for instance, like in the previous talk by Rode and Schwarz, they said, this is a progression. Don't aim for perfection. It's an iterative process. We've identified quite many things already we have tackled, we have fixed, some items we still need to do, but we need to be ready at some point in time so that you can be ready within time for the CRA itself. And that is one of the discussions, for instance, we have been having with lots of customers, like which LTS version, for instance. So like we stated in the 6.8, when we have been moving the LTS period from 3 to 5 years time of support to actually match better the CRA requirements, we already stated that we are aiming for 2 years until the next LTS comes out, because otherwise it would be way too many LTS releases to manage. But if you look specifically at that timeline there, you might think, okay, this is really close in that respect. You need to be ready, but 6.12 does that match? And we've been talking to all kinds of customers, smaller ones up to big enterprises, but that was perfectly fine for them. And this is, for instance, one of the questions still, like, if you have different feedback, we're really looking forward to discussing that with you also individually. But maybe while we're staying on there's one part actually which is seeing the two steps in here, like 26 and 27. 26 talks about the vulnerability management publishing. Maybe, Petri, you can talk a bit more of what needs to be done and how do these steps basically come in.
Well, we basically kind of look the open items, I think, what we still have to do. So there's a gap to be closed, so we understand that we've assessed these kind of areas which we need to make up to meet that September timeline. The vulnerability process, which we already have out there, includes a number of kind of elements from the early warning list into the kind of managing and communicating the known vulnerabilities to the authorities. We've just lately been signed off as a kind of a CNA authority, so we are able to control even the vulnerability process more as a kind of authority of calling out that which vulnerability to report. So there's a number of kind of provisions that we've taken to meet that first timeline. With this timeline in mind and the pressure on, Maurice, what do you see as still being open? What's in our to-do list?
Unfortunately, plenty of things. So maybe there's a couple of things we want to go by one, where we know this is big discussions where we're still having. And then also, again, let's get into a dialogue afterwards. Let's start with Qt versions and CRA compliance. Like you've been seeing on the previous slide, there are certain time slots where we could then easily say, okay, starting from this version, Qt is going to be CRA compliant. But we also know that doesn't work out for you at all, because you have products out already which fall under CRA, so now you need to be compliant for already existing versions. And even more so accepting the fact right now that you have picked a Qt version, then started development, and then go out to the market, where you are clearly hit by the CRA. And that opens up the question, how do you manage 6.8, for instance, which is the current long-term support version of Qt? So while we're doing lots and lots of efforts to make it much easier or like get the full CRA compliance and then also make it much easier for you, naturally we also need to look a bit backwards. What can we still do on the 6.8 branch to help you more easily receive basically the CRA compliance, either self-assessment or going through the various classes? We've been talking about Qt 5 before, also in the keynote, in regards of when it comes to timing. So it's 22 days until Qt 5 actually is ending its standard support, which is the reason why, for instance, we have been introducing the extended security maintenance package as well as extended support to help you mitigate the situation with your existing solutions. Again, me with my different hats, and I think I've said that quite often already today. As a product manager, I want you to use 6.9 already, right now. But we're acknowledging the fact that this might not be possible. So that is why we have been introducing these service products in addition to help you providing security patches on that 5.15 version for the lifetime you must go through still. And we're also acknowledging a situation that this is not because you're lazy. Not at all. The thing is, if you are acting in a regulated environment, you cannot update the Qt version, for instance, because otherwise you would need to go for recertification, and that is the reason why you can only then basically apply security patches on top. And there ESM, for instance, is a very nice package for you.
All right, then the next question, which we still have to tackle, is basically the portfolio level coverage of the CRA compliances. So we do have another products than the Qt framework in our portfolio, and you know those products are to varying degree complying with CRA today, and because they come from various backgrounds. Then it's a question that which product needs to reach a which level of maturity. So they might be that not all of the product need to be a certain stage at this phase. But one thing which is sure that we need to prepare a readiness at the Qt company level, that if we have new products or we acquire new products or however we kind of broaden our portfolio, everything kind of will then follow with the similar CRA compliance standards and those kind of procedures. So this is kind of a more broader question of us really absorbing the CRA and the cybersecurity kind of notions in our business.
Yeah. I've been mentioning before, like, an SBOM specifies which third-party components are in there. But one of the items we still need to look into and also need feedback from your end is, are you tracking also Qt's third-party components in your basically incidents tracking tool, or are you expecting us to do that for you? We know of our dependencies, we know how to track, or well, we're in the process of assessing where the third-party components partially are, but we are following like any kinds of security incidences happening in the third-party world. But should we forward that information, or is everybody already using tools like which has been raised, dependency track by Rode and Schwarz in the previous talk, but also other solutions are out there which might help you, and then basically through the SBOM you get this kind of assessment. But generally when it comes to the third-party components, we're currently going through the whole list, identifying each by each, how does that component handle security, and especially the CRA one as well. So we need to go through like the whole list and yeah, basically do full clearance basically on all third-party components. Previously we have already been like going through the process when it comes to, do we want or need to add another third-party library into Qt? Because, well, first of all, you're getting into the whole dependency hell, because it's getting more and more things, which Qt also depends upon. But the whole security management is yet now, we're including that as yet another angle when it comes to the additions of these.
All right, another open topic is still around the certification. This is, of course, partly open also by the ENISA and EU official perspective. So the earlier last year, there was a discussion about them creating a separate CRA certification program and with the different authorities in the countries to kind of certify the companies and their products. Lately, they've been diverting more towards of the EU common conformity kind of a standard and that certification process. Which way this is going to go? For sure, we're going to be self-certifying and getting the CE marking for the framework, a year from now. That's kind of what is decided on our side. Then the jury is still out there whether we will be seeking the additional levels of certification based on the market demands. So there's, of course, the class 1, class 2 type of certificates that ENISA has announced. So we'll have to kind of observe how the market and demand is for those kind of a certification. But that's kind of open at the moment.
One thing which is also a bit open on the certification part from ourselves is, for those of you who are not aware, there's like self-declarance, saying we act according to the regulations, and then there's like class 1 and class 2, and then especially on the self-declarance, are you like really self-declaring, or do you get the assessment from an external entity, which, well, boosts basically a bit more of confidence that you are at that level. The situation for us in Qt is, well, we're not creating a target consumer product or a product with digital enhancements, how it's called in the CRA. You are the ones creating that, right? And then we have customers from all angles who would be perfectly fine with self-declaration of their product, and then also like self-declaration of Qt is perfectly fine. But as you know, Qt is used in so many industries, again, and naturally those do have quite some other audits as well, and also like higher classification when it comes to that. And in that respect, it would be super helpful for users or creators of these products if Qt goes through a higher level certification process. And that is something we still need to learn, and again, we're eager to get your feedback upon. Would be like, for instance, self or external assessment or declaration from our end be sufficient for you? Or would you actually really like us to go on a higher level when it comes to class 1, certainly not class 2 specification or certification?
So what else, Maurice?
SLAs.
Doesn't end up here.
Stepping me on my right feet, it is, I think. So service license reaction times, basically. The CRA generally puts a horizontal guideline across all industries how to handle cybersecurity. We've been serving medical and other industries where for instance, SLAs, so the time until you need to have a security incident fixed, there's much more stricter rules in there. Maybe one interesting aspect also when it comes to the CRA, we've been talking about vulnerability management communication. You only need to communicate that your product is insecure. It doesn't tell you when you need to fix it. But still, if you don't fix it, well, naturally, that's going to be quite a competitive disadvantage. In other industries, again, like I said, you have like 30 days or 7 days, etc., until you must have published a fix. So far, we from the Qt side have not been giving any commitment when it comes to until when a security incident is about to be fixed, but we're also hearing from your end that some kind of commitment from our side would really be beneficial, especially when it comes to the long-lasting products, etc. So that is an ongoing discussion we still have, and also like we need to assess how much commitment we can give. We've just been updating, for instance, our vulnerability management process in itself, where we have the various steps. When do we do the notification? How long does it take on average to have a fix? And from a development workflow, first everything goes into the development branch, and then it goes back to the last LTS release, which would be 6.8, then 6.5, and then the fix also gets backported to 5.15. And depending on what kind of fix that is, that might take time. So, and that's the problem for us on the SLA part. If you're using 6.8 right now, we could be much more proud and much more bold in saying should be within that time, but we don't know how long that takes. So it's a bit of a give and take situation, really, for us to understand what would be your expectations if we were to go to that, and on the other hand also, what can we confidently agree upon.
All right. One more thing to kind of go through is the kind of you heard in the morning sessions about our focus on a certain industry verticals. We see that while the CRA is touching, of course, a kind of a European market, we are observing the certain vertical demands and kind of requirements what comes from there to the standardization and compliance as such. So this is definitely something that we are also observing and seeing that how much more can we put into our build. So. With this, I think you've heard that there's a lot going on from our side. We are investing a lot in the CRA and then becoming more cybersecurity friendly for our customers and helping you out there. So this is definitely a journey that we will be here together, because this is going to be hit us and you equally in the market. So we better kind of try to conquer this thing together. We do believe that we can be a trusted and credible partner for you now and in the future on this topic, and hopefully we will get going a lot of interaction and discussion during this event at the booth or offline. So
yeah. So basically, yeah, we do have a CRA booth right next at the R&D desk if you want to have one-by-one discussions on that. We've also been covering that at the Customer Advisory Board on Monday already to some extent. But also, again, this is an exchange. So that's actually why we also scheduled some time for Q&A. It might not be the best audio for having a Q&A, but if you have any questions on how we are managing that on the CRA itself, and you want to ask that question open and publicly,
I'll bring the microphone around.
Perfect, thank you.
If you have questions, and then we have your question on the recording as well.
Hey, thanks. Hey, thank you. I think it's one of the first times I hear somebody talk about this, and I appreciate. So one question: the liability in the end is still of the manufacturers who gives a product to a consumer, right? The direct to consumer. So even though you are a product as an SDK, in the end you are not direct to consumer. So the liability falls into the hands of the end business, let's say. In this respect, everything you're trying with SLAs and certifications, it's like a nice to have, a nice gesture from your part. But if it ever gets down to money, who pays liability fees or, I don't know, lawsuits or something?
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of contract agreements you can add to the service you offer as B2B in a way that other businesses that give products to consumer can feel more assured that you're in it with them, let's say. As I said, all of these are nice to have. They reduce risks, but when there's an actual impact, a financial impact, what would be your assurances for that, for example? So if I can even give an example like libpng, you depend on libpng, we depend on Qt, there's a libpng error, like vulnerability exploited actively out there. It's kind of your responsibility. Your SLA says 2 weeks. You get a lawsuit, others expected 2 days, they got hacked. Yep. Who will pay?
There's quite many aspects you're covering in here, so I had loved it if that was 5 questions. So trying to remember what I wanted to say right from the get-go. So first of all, yes, we recognize everyone is at a different stage when it comes to assessing the CRA. Starting from hearing here on this day for the first time up to, well, us having discussions with customers who come with us with a requirements list of these 500 things you need to do. You're absolutely right. The CRA covers the entity or the vendor of a product. Maybe one thing also to highlight, a product does not necessarily mean an embedded device, this also covers enterprise desktop applications. So just making that sure. So yes, the liability or generally all responsibility is on the person or the entity who is creating that PDE, so a product with digital enhancement. But I mean, you could say we're just playing nice so that our customers basically are having an easier path. But this is also like, well, we're creating products to make lives easier for our customers and / our developers, right? So that is also why we want to have Qt really well fit to the upcoming CRA, so that at least on the Qt side, you don't need to, or well, with minimal effort, need to take care of that. Generally, when it comes to liability management, I guess that's really a very individual discussion. Also, especially when you go backwards within the whole tool chain. And another thing you brought up, and we've been talking about third party before, and you're perfectly right, is if there's a security incident happening on a product, and Qt gets contacted saying, hey, we found a security incident. Of course, our first step is that a security incident? Secondly, is that one in Qt, or is it in the third party? So in that respect, are we fixing the thing in the third party? Can we fix it? Does the third party then basically, how does that look from their angle? And that's, for instance, formalizing that, talking about the SBOM, etc., that you actually know what's in your product. For every one of you who has been building an embedded product, going through Yocto and all the packages in there, it can be quite intimidating sometimes how many assets you actually have in your stack. So I hope that was giving a bit of a
And we
plans.
do expect that this is going to get a lot more of a kind of a discussion with not necessarily only the technology, but really your company's legal and procurement division to kind of seek it out. Okay, what does constitute our supply chain? What all elements of vendors or so forth we use in our kind of a product creation and etc. So I think this is going to be raising more than acute questions also as you as a manufacturer. But as Maurice said, the liability sort of is according to EU and the law by the manufacturer who releases this product to the market. So in a sense, that's where the bucket lies. Any other questions?
Volker seems to be searching.
Oh, there's Volker is scanning the audience.
Unsuccessfully.
All right.
Well, in that respect, sorry.
We take that too. So if no questions, then.
Yep. And also, if you're more interested in a one-by-one discussion, either here at the event, come to our CA booth, reach out to both of us. But what we're also doing is we're going into active engagements with all of our customers, well, all of them who are interested, having dedicated workshops together, assessing like what is it you need from Qt, maybe a bit giving also what we learned in a bit more extensive way, like here. So please, let's have this in active discussion because we all need to go through this.
All right. With that, thank you very much for listening.
Thank
Volker,
you.
It's a wrap.
Thank you.
Maurice and Petri.